Where's the tablecloth and the serviettes?
A century ago, in Australia's outback city of Broken Hill,
Well, is that your famous?
a group of people came together
It's cream too.
to observe, record and protect the natural environment. Named after the rugged and ancient Barrier Ranges, they became the Barrier Field Naturalists Club. But these were difficult times. People and the landscape were at odds. An isolated city, an inhospitable climate, widespread destruction of flora and fauna, exposed fragile soils to the wind, causing fierce dust storms and sand drifts that made life miserable and threatened the town's existence. But these visionary, observant and practical people saw a solution. And from its outset, the Barrier Field Naturalists Club was a driving force for change.
Yeah, you can do it. You're the tea brewer.
Yep,
Cool.
pretty sure that's what
Awesome.
it is. Which is interesting, yeah, I've never seen it growing like that amongst mallee. It's native apricot is its common name. It's also called locket bush because the orange fruit sort of opens like a locket.
The leaves too were used and the seeds were ground. So there's lots of different uses. Pittosporum augustifolium, is
Yep.
that the...
Well done.
I'm trying to learn Latin. But it's a mouthful. That's the best I'm going to get.
Albert Morris photographed the native apricot in the 1920s. Margaret Morris hand-coloured it. And many other plants.
And this one has just so many flowers. It's such a lovely thing. But I've seen it.
They knew we'd all be better off if we could understand, value and enjoy the natural world around us. Art was a way to connect. Through public lectures, they shared knowledge and helped keep Broken Hill connected with the latest ideas in ecology and science more broadly. Information about the local plants was scarce, so they did the research themselves. They published books, revealed the town's history. They campaigned to protect Aboriginal cultural heritage and were instrumental in the establishment of Mootwingie Reserve in 1927. And they brought nature into town with annual wildflower shows. The club's first president, Dr. William McGillivray, was widely respected as a physician and an ornithologist. He travelled extensively through the arid rangelands and was anxious to sound the alarm about the worsening ecological loss and soil erosion that he was witnessing. Founding Secretary Albert Morris is a legendary figure in the history of Broken Hill and in the field of ecological restoration. A mine assayer by trade, he was a keen observer of nature with a long-standing interest in botany, ecology and plant propagation. Based on observations and experiments, Albert developed an understanding of the complex and often cryptic arid ecosystems around Broken Hill. Uncle Bert, with his kindly and generous nature, could cross social barriers and bring people together. The field naturalists appreciated the patterns of vegetation that characterise a healthy arid landscape. Red gums mainly follow watercourses. Small trees like mulga and leopardwood prefer the sandy rises or rocky ridges. Vast areas of shrubland are naturally treeless. Trees, for shade and amenity, were desperately needed in the town, but establishing them seemed impossible. Albert Morris was the one who had the magic touch. His local knowledge and years of tree growing practice were paying off in the streets and backyards. But the surrounding expanse of eroding landscape remained a looming threat. In the mid-1930s, Zinc Corporation was building a large new mine complex and hoped a tree plantation would buffer the wind and sand. It was Albert they turned to for help. He was able to scale up his planting work with local species. Rows of young trees were soon thriving, and a grateful mining corporation named the plantation Albert Morris Park. Many of those trees survive today. But Albert and the BFN's greatest achievement was yet to come. They knew that the trees were not the most remarkable thing in the plantation. They understood the significance of the natural regeneration that was springing up now that the grazing animals were gone. Planted trees alone could never repair the damaged soils. But these regenerating grasses, forbs, shrubs and lichens could.
So this is the original Albert Morris Park plantation #1, and all the eucalypts are in rows. And they were excited about all the native grasses that regenerated, and this gave Albert Morris a lot of encouragement to consider that the regeneration by simply fencing could be sufficient. So when you look at it today, the eucalypts are all in rows and they're doing quite well in that section of the plantation. But when you look over here, there's less successful plantation and much more successful regeneration, including Atriplex and Cassia. We can see that the shrub layer is more dominant. It's looking more like the local ecosystem and less like a eucalypt plantation.
But the recovering native plants would have to carry a very heavy load. In Albert's words, the country stretched for miles without a vestige of anything green. People on the edge of town were abandoning their homes, and it seemed like nothing could be done to stop the shifting sands. But Albert had a plan. If only we could get an area a mile wide fenced, to keep the stock and rabbits out to allow the natural vegetation to come back. It would be costly and mean the end of public access to the common. There was widespread scepticism, even protest and ridicule. The concept of natural regeneration was difficult for people to grasp. But Albert reassured them the plants would regenerate by themselves from soil-stored seed and from colonisation, once they were protected by fencing. And nothing else was working. Albert and the BFN eventually gained the support of industry, government and community. The first section of fencing was completed in 1937. And some well-timed rains triggered significant regeneration, confirming Albert was right.
There's the saltbush seedling, and there's just a little tiny one there. And back here, that one, it feels a bit thick. That's the pig face. You can see it's got three-sided.
By 1939, fenced reserves surrounded half the town. Albert would have been well pleased to see the dream of his life become a reality. But sadly, he'd become seriously ill, and earlier that year, he passed away. He never saw the extent of the regeneration that was sparked by the soaking rains of 1939. But Margaret documented it. After working many years beside Albert, she stepped up to the leadership role, championing Albert's plan through drought, dust storms and a world war, reassuring the doubters that natural regeneration would work. By 1958, Broken Hill was protected by a full circle of fenced reserves. The regenerating plants took back control of the drifting sands and have held them ever since. For many decades, the club maintained its tradition of friendship, field adventures, and standing up for the protection of our unique arid landscapes.
Up the creek without a paddle.
But by 2017, after 97 years, numbers had dwindled from 160 in 1939 to just a few. Knowing that the club's job was far from done, they battled to keep it going, but eventually ran out of options and had to reluctantly vote to wind up the BFNC. But a last-minute rallying cry went out, and the final meeting drew a crowd as the people of Broken Hill turned out to support their club. 2017 also saw the creation of the Albert Morris Award for Ecological Restoration.
This is dead finish, this is river red gum. So it was picked up. I never cut the trees from the regeneration area. I went out a little bit further, I got a piece of dead finish.
And international recognition for the Broken Hill Regeneration Reserves as one of the world's first ecological restoration projects.
These numbers came from a survey that Margaret Morris did in 1939 after Albert's death. She numbered these reserves and described which ones they were and left species lists. So we were able to go back and check the species now in 2017.
People from across Australia gathered to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the reserves.
The
woolly.
What I think is great about these sites is that what other people would consider perhaps a little scrappy environment, we get very excited about.
Well, exactly. That's why I'm always a little bit cautious about some of the early descriptions which talk about the desolate sort of wastelands or something. Is it just someone who's come from Ireland and seeing it through different eyes? And is it in fact quite a healthy environment for an arid thing? Or was it a particularly degraded point at that time when they saw it? It sort of depends on your perspective, I guess, how you appraise a landscape like this.
We're the Barrier Field Naturalists Club, established 1920. It's James's favourite line. This is one of our field trips. We come out usually every month, so we have so far every month this year. So originally they started out walking and on horse and cart. They would have done exactly what we're doing right now. They could have even been right here where we are. We do go to the same places over and over the years and try and keep a record of how that is different every time we go there. And that's what we do. We go out, we look and we consult people and resources and try and find out as much as we can about the place we're in.
They celebrated their centenary in 2020. And as we enter the UN decade on ecosystem restoration, we still have a lot to learn from pioneers like Albert Morris and the BFNC.